The drama surrounding Joel Embiid had been building for years, but in the spring of 2026, it finally exploded into something the NBA could no longer ignore. What started as frustration whispered by opposing players suddenly became the loudest conversation in basketball, turning every Sixers game into a courtroom and every Embiid possession into evidence. Fans were furious, analysts were divided, and social media transformed into a non-stop war zone of clips, accusations, and debates about whether one of the greatest big men of this generation was also the symbol of everything wrong with the modern NBA. The moment that lit the fuse came immediately after the Boston Celtics suffered one of the most humiliating collapses of their era. Boston had held a commanding 3-1 series lead over Philadelphia. They looked destined for another deep playoff run. Then Joel Embiid returned from his appendectomy recovery, and everything changed. The Sixers stormed back, won 3 straight games, and silenced TD Garden in devastating fashion. Embiid dropped 34 points in Game 7, dominating the floor, while Celtics players walked off stunned. Less than 24 hours later, Jaylen Brown sat in front of a Twitch stream, still carrying the weight of that loss, and what he said instantly detonated across the sports world. Brown didn't dance around the issue. He praised Embiid's greatness first, calling him one of the best big men in basketball history, but then he delivered the line that would spread across the internet within minutes. He said Embiid flops, and he knows it. That sentence became the center of the NBA universe overnight. Clips flooded Instagram, X, Reddit, and YouTube. Sports shows opened with it. Debate panels argued over it for hours. Suddenly, every Embiid highlight reel was being paired with slow-motion compilations of dramatic falls, exaggerated reactions, and whistle-seeking possessions. Brown's comments didn't create the criticism, but they amplified it louder than ever before. What made the situation feel bigger than a normal playoff controversy was the fact that Brown wasn't alone. His frustration sounded eerily familiar because multiple players, coaches, and broadcasters had already been saying the exact same thing for months. Devin Booker had confronted Embiid directly during a February matchup between the Suns and the Sixers, telling him he was too talented to be flopping around like that. Booker still showed respect, mentioning their Olympic experience together, but the criticism landed hard because it followed the same pattern as Brown's later comments. Both stars acknowledged Embiid's greatness before accusing him of turning basketball into theater. Then there were the coaches. Back in January, during a regular season game against Houston, Rockets assistant coach Royal Ivey openly complained about Embiid's foul baiting during halftime. Reporters overheard him venting about how impossible it was to defend a player who seemed to turn every possession into a whistle hunt. Houston's broadcast team echoed the frustration live on air, repeatedly pointing out what they believed were exaggerated reactions designed to manipulate referees. That was months before Brown's Twitch stream ever happened, proving the criticism wasn't emotional fallout from a playoff loss. It had already become a league-wide perception. The deeper fans looked, the more history they found. Old clips resurfaced from nearly every stage of Embiid's career. One of the biggest moments came all the way back in 2018 during a heated matchup against Detroit. Andre Drummond was ejected after Embiid dramatically sold contact on a post move late in overtime. Pistons coach Dwayne Casey exploded afterward, calling Embiid a bully who flopped constantly. The NBA later rescinded Drummond's technical foul and officially issued Embiid a flopping warning, the only formal warning of his career. That incident suddenly felt important again because it became proof to critics that the reputation wasn't new. It had followed Embiid for nearly a decade. By the time the Miami Heat game happened in March 2026, the conversation had reached another level entirely. Heat broadcasters openly sounded disgusted during the telecast, as Embiid repeatedly went to the floor during post-battles with Bam Adebayo. The commentary was brutally direct. They told viewers defenders practically had to back away from Embiid because any contact could trigger another whistle. Clips of the broadcast spread like wildfire online, fueling endless debates about whether the NBA's officiating had become completely broken. The Sixers lost the game, but nobody cared about the final score. The only thing anyone talked about afterward was how unbearable some fans believed the product had become. That was the dangerous part for the league. This was no longer just about one player. It was becoming a referendum on the NBA itself. Every discussion about Embiid evolved into a larger debate about foul baiting, officiating, and whether the modern game rewarded manipulation more than skill. Fans argued the league had drifted too far away from physical basketball and toward whistle-driven entertainment. Others defended Embiid by pointing out the brutal punishment dominant centers endure every night. At 7 feet tall, carrying constant injuries and absorbing endless contact, Embiid naturally drew fouls because defenders often had no legal way to stop him. Both sides had valid arguments, and that complexity only made the controversy more explosive. Still, perception matters more than reality in modern sports culture. Once the internet attaches a label to a player, every moment becomes filtered through that narrative forever. James Harden experienced it for years. LeBron James dealt with it constantly. Now Embiid had entered the same territory. Every fall looked suspicious. Every whistle looked exaggerated. Every trip to the line felt like another chapter in the ongoing trial of Joel Embiid. Even legitimate contact was now viewed through a lens of skepticism because the reputation had become impossible to escape. Then came the headline that pushed the chaos into overdrive. Rumors exploded online, claiming the NBA had finally had enough and issued Joel Embiid a lifetime ban over flopping allegations. The phrase spread everywhere because it sounded dramatic enough to be believable in an era where outrage fuels clicks. Faster than facts. Fans panicked, others celebrated. Social media treated it like the biggest scandal basketball had seen in years. But as the smoke cleared, the truth slowly emerged. There was no ban, no suspension, no massive fine. No emergency disciplinary action from the NBA. The league had not punished Embiid in any meaningful way during the 2026 season. In fact, the only official flopping discipline of his entire career remained that warning from 2018. Every major sports outlet confirmed the same reality. The lifetime ban simply did not exist, and somehow that truth made the story even more fascinating. Because despite all the outrage, all the viral clips, all the screaming debates, nothing actually changed. The cycle continued exactly as it always had. A player complained, a sports show reacted, fans exploded online, Embiid stepped onto the court again and dropped another dominant performance. The NBA stayed silent. Then the process repeated itself all over again. That's what made the situation feel so strange. Joel Embiid wasn't being punished by the league, he was being punished by perception. Every game now came with suspicion attached to it. Every opponent entered the matchup already expecting controversial whistles. Every fan base prepared highlight compilations before tip-off even happened. The Knicks series looming ahead felt less like a playoff matchup and more like the next chapter in an endless courtroom drama. The reality is that Embiid remains one of the most unstoppable players of his generation. He dominates the paint, scores at elite levels, and forces defenses into impossible situations. But alongside that greatness lives another reality. A growing portion of the basketball world believes the theatrics surrounding his game are damaging the sport's image. That tension is what makes this story so compelling. It's not about whether Embiid is talented. Nobody serious denies that. The question is whether the modern NBA has created an environment where selling contact has become just as valuable as actual basketball skill. And until the league decides to truly enforce its own anti-flopping rules, the controversy will never disappear. The whistles will keep coming. The clips will keep going viral, opposing stars will keep calling it out, fans will keep arguing, and Joel Embiid will continue playing under a microscope unlike almost any superstar in the league. Not banned, not suspended, but trapped inside, but a reputation that now follows every single move he makes on the court. So now the question shifts to the fans and the future of the NBA itself. Has the league allowed foul baiting and flopping to go too far? Or are critics unfairly targeting one of basketball's greatest modern centers? Is Joel Embiid being exposed? Or is he simply mastering the system better than everyone else? And most importantly, should the NBA finally crack down on flopping in a serious way before the game changes permanently? Let us know your thoughts below because this debate is far from over. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next major NBA controversy.